Hey folks, just a quick last second IDR waiver Q&A before the deadline of tonight, which we don't even know what the deadline is actually. I'll talk about that in a second, but I wanted to start off some of the questions we got in different channels about the IDR waiver, just to go over just the last second questions that are coming in. So we got some questions first on Instagram. So people said, where can I apply for the waiver? You don't apply for it. It's just automatically assigned to you. And so the question is how many benefits will you get on the IDR waiver? The question is just, how did you consolidate? Do you need to consolidate, right? They're going to be making these adjustments over the next several months. So it could be a long time before you actually see the benefits of the IDR waiver adjusted into your account. Some people will have to wait until 2025 to see those changes actually made and updated when the payment tracker that gets launched into studentaid.gov. So it could take a while. A couple other people wanted to know, I'm in default. I have Parent Plus loans. I have, private loans. Does this qualify? Do I qualify for this? So IDR waiver is applicable to all federal types of loans. You might have to consolidate, though, if they're not owned by Department of Ed. And if you're in default, ideally you try to get out of default, possibly by doing a consolidation or, this rehab process that they have in place. So some folks are saying, what if I'm currently enrolled in school? Does this IDR waiver help me? You have to have your loans in an in repayment status to be able to consolidate them. So, you might not be able to do that if you're actually already actively enrolled. Other people asked, I've already consolidated. People have said, I've already consolidated my loans. Could this benefit me? And, if you've already consolidated your loans, generally speaking, you don't need to worry about doing it again. The only catch to that is if they're old, very old consolidated loans, like FFEL consolidated or something like that. So a couple other people said, do I have to get onto the save plan, or can I, be on the same plan that I've been on? You can get on whatever plan you want to be on, including no IDR plan at all. You could get on, anything really. The standard plan, for example, with this consolidation. So some other folks talked about too, I was told not to consolidate. Is that accurate? Here's the real thing about consolidating, right? If you consolidate, it resets your payment amount. So if you have a very low income from way back in the day and you consolidate, then you could potentially lose, that low payment that you had that's locked in until 2025. So if you have a very low payment from back in the day, pre-COVID era, you consolidate, that could reset your payment to a way higher number, possibly for no benefit. And so that's why, it's not just definitely everybody should consolidate, right? Now, in terms of some of the other questions, and I'll get to some questions we got on other platforms in a second. So let's see. Some of the people are still waiting on account adjustments, from the PSLF waiver back in the day. And so that's kind of, people are saying, should I, I'm on the standard plan. Do I need to switch off of that plan to an IDR plan because I'm still waiting around on that waiver to be applied fully? I mean, personally, I would always just be on an IDR plan for PSLF unless that payment under the save plan is way more than standard 10-year. That would be what I would do. Now, let's say let's say this is a hypothetical somebody had. Let's say I have multiple direct loans on save and a handful of FFEL loans in IBR. Do you just consolidate the FFEL loans only? Absolutely freaking not. You consolidate all of it. And the reason is because those FFEL loans are probably really old. And by consolidating everything with the direct loans, you could get years of extra credit towards forgiveness, or possibly be forgiven all completely up until tonight at midnight. Now, let's see if somebody said I applied to consolidate, but they didn't let me choose an IDR plan that I wanted to. I thought I could choose. I mean, sometimes you have to apply via paper app with your IDR plan just because the servicer websites are trying to push everybody into save, and that's not accurate in some cases. So sometimes you have to apply with the paper app. Now I'm going to cover some of the questions we got over on TikTok. Someone says, does my interest rate change after consolidation? No, it doesn't. Other people mentioned, I tried to do the consolidation tool, but my payment was projected to be $1,000 a month instead of $200 a month. Should I do it? The only reason you should do that is if you're getting tons of credit on consolidating that you wouldn't get otherwise, right? Someone says, could this hurt me if I consolidate when I shouldn't have? And the answer is yes. Your payment could jump up for a whole extra year that you could have kept a low payment for. So, the maximum damage is just pretend you're a brain surgeon making $800,000 a year going for PSLF, and your payment would be $8,000 a month. and your current payment from residency back before the pandemic was $300 a month. Well, the max damage would be the delta on that times 12. That's an example of like the downside of the IDR waiver consolidation. Somebody says, what if you've already got the credit for your oldest loan? Well, you can still consolidate and get the credit applied to the whole thing. And then, somebody says, if I don't qualify for this, my payments go way up. Should I still do it? I mean, it's absolutely certain that if you consolidate and you have one old loan with tons of credit, that it'll be counted. The rules are clear. So the just question is does it make sense to jump your payment or not? Now some questions from YouTube, from our YouTube folks. Someone says, I want to do double consolidation, but should I do the IDR waiver on all but one Parent Plus loan and then consolidate it so I can consolidate them later? That's a real reasonable thing to do. You can consolidate a Parent Plus loan by itself. So you could take everything that's besides one small Parent Plus loan to get that big amount of credit on one consolidation. And then what happens is when you go to finish the double consolidation, you'll get that weighted average credit, which will be almost the same thing as if you consolidated it all at once. Someone goes, if we apply for consolidation before April 30th today, and then do the add loans form within 180 days to add loans that were in school status or now in payment status, will this change the application date to past April 30th? Or would those loans added on be included? I think it'll be included. So you would probably want to go ahead and throw those loans on. Couple other questions. So someone says, if I only have grad loans and pay my undergrad loans already, does that mean there's no benefit to consolidation? I only have, I have FFEL, Stafford, and unsubsidized loans for grad school only. So anybody with FFEL loans, FFEL, which is like loans at Navient or, I don't know, Sally Mae Trust or something like that are on studentaid.gov when you log in, but they weren't paused during the pandemic. I mean, those folks are just going to be really out of luck after this waiver's over, because this is the one opportunity to get just tons of credit, tons of forgiveness credit, and a lot of those folks could have the loans completely forgiven. So I think probably half of all these loans outstanding could have been forgiven if people had simply known to do it. But it's as of, theoretically this evening, it's too late. One question we got from our Twitter audience, I just recalculated my payment yesterday with my 2023 tax info. Will this mess things up? No, it won't. I mean, it might cause your payment plan to go up, but that's what happens normally when you recertify for IDR, right? So in general with this IDR waiver, I want to talk about just real quick, like the fact that this waiver probably doesn't end tonight, which I don't want to, promise that. But really what it seems like Department of Ed is trying to do is tell people that any final consolidation dispersed on or after July 1 will be subject to the weighted average rules of credit for consolidation, which just means if you have some grad loans, if you have some old undergrad loans and they get all mixed together, they're going to use the weighted average credit that you've got towards forgiveness instead of giving you credit based off of whatever loan is the oldest. And so the whole idea behind telling people April 30th, no later than today, to finish consolidating is so that they would be able to tell people that, have really complex consolidations that go past July 1 disbursement dates, why they didn't get credit. So that's really, I think, what's going on here is Department of Ed wanted to push everybody to apply by April 30th so they'd have enough time to finish the consolidations by July 1 so that they could have this new weighted average rule go into effect July 1. So I actually think that there's no death valley of consolidation in May and June. I think Department of Education was just trying to scare people into submitting their applications today. So if you need to consolidate, I would still do it if the math makes sense. And you could possibly still benefit from this IDR waiver as long as you get the disbursement of the consolidation before July 1. And a couple other people too have questions about default, fresh start. What if I'm waiting for that enrollment to process? I mean, ultimately, I've never seen consolidation wreck somebody with the Department of Education. I mean, not private refinancing. So what I mean by that is when in doubt, consolidate, right? When in doubt, consolidate. Why? Because Department of Ed has had numerous opportunities to screw people over who consolidate. Things like, during the Sweet Big Cardona settlement, borrower defense to repayment, right? And they just always choose the side of not screwing over borrowers that have consolidated. So I have full confidence that if somebody consolidated, the worst thing that would happen to you is your payment would go up a lot for 1 year, right? So that suggests there's very limited downside to consolidating for most people. So most people should just go to studentaid.gov/loan-consolidation and just go ahead and consolidate it, right? Not everybody. Parent Plus borrowers that consolidate everything, potentially could screw themselves over because you could lose access to double consolidation unless you go back to school. But most everybody should. And then, keep in mind too that Parent Plus borrowers that might have an old loan could hit the jackpot because they could have a loan with a ton of credit mixed with loans from their children's education that are more recent, and they could get credited on the Parent Plus consolidation based off of the the really old loan from their own education, which is one way that we've seen a lot of Parent Plus borrowers get all of their loans forgiven. This is a real thing that we've seen happen to a lot of people. And I'm just going to real quick look through just to see if I have any other big questions. So, basically some of the questions I'm seeing is if you have any like loans that are not totally consolidated together, probably you should do that tonight. Probably. And looking through, somebody asks, what about the interest cancellation that they're talking about? When's that going to happen? They're going to announce that probably in May or June. And then the final rule for that would be coming out sometime in like sometime like in October, right before the election, right? They're going to try to time it to come out at the perfect time. Somebody just says, I just consolidated just last night. Am I still okay? And the good answer is yes, you are. There's going to be a lot of changes to student loans this year. A lot of people could get access to forgiveness that have never had access to it before. And if you follow Student Loan Planner for tips like this, we're going to keep you informed. We're going to make sure you don't pay extra money that you don't need to pay. Really appreciate everybody following our account, and y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Final day to do the IDR waiver and consolidate according to Department of Ed. Probably midnight tonight. I don't know Eastern or Pacific time, but go do it if you need to. If you have any more questions, post them in the comments, and thanks for following Student Loan Planner.